to the second talk about the wisdom of Sirach. So last week we just had a little bit of an introduction to the book of Sirach, one of the Septuagint. Like I mentioned last week, this series is about me. I generally do series about things that I'm learning about at the same time. So before this, I have never read the book. I didn't know anything about it. So I'm legitimately learning alongside you guys. So last week we talked a lot about wisdom and the pursuit of wisdom and the attainment of wisdom and what that means. So we're just going to continue today because the first two chapters in Sirach are actually the basis for the entire book. I can't remember how many chapters are in it in total. I think it's like something like 46 or 50. And the first two chapters are the foundation for everything that's talked about in the rest of the book. So there are two major themes in the book of Sirach. So I'm not sure if anybody has the book of Sirach up on their screen or in their physical Bible. You can find them in the Orthodox Bibles. I also generally tend to read them online as I'm preparing because I like to have them side by side. So we'll just get started. Sorry, I'm struggling with technology today. Okay, so there are two major themes that we're going to talk about today in the book of Sirach. So the first one, which is one that is very, very dear to my heart, is the idea that wisdom grows in the service of God. So if you look at the very first verse in chapter 2 of Sirach, it says, "My child, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for testing." And the rest of the book essentially talks about everything in the context of service and how you cannot separate the pursuit of wisdom from the service of God, because wisdom grows when you are in the service of God. And so I just want to take it back a notch. Okay. So, and this is something that people who have heard my talks are going to roll their eyes about, because I feel like I talk about this a lot and I beat this point to death. But the question is, why do we serve? Right? And when you're younger and you're a fresh servant and you're just kind of getting started in the world of service, everybody's answers are always like, oh, I want to help people. Oh, I want to give back. I want to whatever. Okay, that's great. Okay. And if you want to be a humanitarian, that's fine. But a humanitarian and a servant are two different things. We serve because we love him. That's it. We don't serve the person in front of us. We don't serve a specific demographic. We don't serve, all of that stuff is irrelevant. We serve because we love him. We serve because he has asked us to. We serve because that's the way that we show him that we love him. That's it. It's not about who you're serving. It's not about the people. It's not about what you're doing. It's not about any of that. Because if it is about any of that, then your motivation for service might need a little bit of tweaking. But when you serve because you're devoted to him, when you serve because you love him, that then is, I'll boldly say, A, true service, and B, service that can withstand opposition and service that can withstand discouragement, right? So when I was younger and I would serve, I used to serve little kids or whatever, okay? You go to church, it used to be Saturday nights, you go to church, and this was before I understood the context of why you serve, etc. You go to church and there's two kids there, okay? And as a servant, you get discouraged, right? I'm in school, I have exams, I've made time for the service, and you get there, and then there's nobody there, and you become discouraged, right? Because I'm not serving for the right reasons. Conversely, okay, fast forward to a time after I learned to conceptualize this concept, okay, and it doesn't matter how many people show up. It doesn't matter how many people tune in, or it doesn't matter, because my service is not about the people I'm talking to. I don't actually care if anybody gets anything out of this. Sorry, it's maybe a little bit of a harsh message, but when I show up for service, I show up because he's asked me to. When I show up for service, I show up because this is the only way that I can reciprocate 1/1,000,000th of what he shows me. That's it. And so it doesn't matter who's there to receive it, because it's not about the person receiving it. It's about him, right? I'll be honest with you guys. I am drowning this week. I am absolutely drowning, okay? But he has carried me through this week. He has carried me. He has literally preserved the life of my children from their own she'ewa. I don't know what the word for she'ewa is in English. And like, he's literally carried me through this week, and I have no way to reciprocate that except service. That's it. That's all I got. And so I serve because that's all I can give him in return. I have nothing else. And like, if you think about it in the context of a relationship, right? Like, so like, if you take my husband and I, for example, my love language, gifts. Okay? Give me gifts. You want to show me that you love me? Buy me things. Okay? Give me gifts. I love gifts. Okay? And people always like laugh at that love language because they think it's very like materialistic or superficial, whatever. If you read the book, he tells you why it's not materialistic or superficial. I don't care. Maybe it is. Who cares? Buy me gifts. That's what makes me happy. Give me gifts. Okay? If you think about him, okay, what is his love language? Like, have you ever thought about it in that context? So I know what mine is. I know what I want to receive. I know how I'm shown love, okay? And my love language is gifts, right? It's fitting that my daughter's birthday is today. She's one of the gifts that I was given from God, okay? What is his love language? What are you doing to respond to his love language? Acts of service, right? Acts of service. And so this idea that wisdom grows in the service of God is actually not a stretch, because what is service? Service is you showing him that you love him. Service is you spending time with him. Service is you like trying to build your relationship. Service brings you closer to him. And if wisdom is only given from him to the people that he's close to, it then follows that your wisdom will grow in your service. The more you serve, the more you know him, the more you want to know him, the more you desire wisdom, the more he desires to give it to you, right? So it's actually not a stretch that wisdom grows in the service of God. Little bit of a sidebar that I just want to address because it irks me a little bit is the concept of what is service. Because I mean, I don't know about you guys or whatever, but I was raised in a very like traditional environment where, you know, service is defined by being a Sunday school teacher. You go to church, whatever, you do your servant's prep, and then you become a Sunday school teacher, or you teach youth group, or you whatever. And service was defined when I was growing up by giving lessons. Okay. I mean, I'm like hypocritical right now because I'm literally sitting here talking, but that's how they defined it. Okay. But that's not service. Okay, that's sure maybe somebody's manifestation of service. It's my manifestation of service right now. Okay, but that's not the definition of service. The definition of service is not giving talks or giving lessons. The definition of service is doing whatever needs to be done out of your love for him. And whatever needs to be done could be anything, right? Like when we talked about Mary Magdalene in the series about Mary Magdalene, her service was such a wide range. Did she go and preach and whatever? Yes, she did. Did she also like serve in terms of anointing his body? Yeah. Did she also serve just by being present for him? Yeah. Did she serve by financially bankrolling his ministry? Yeah. None of those services are related to each other. But are they all services? Yes. Because they are what needs to be done, and they were done out of her love for him and out of her devotion to him. So there is no like definition of what a service is. The definition of service is more related to your motivation behind it. It's not related to the action that you're actually completing. It doesn't matter. Okay? Like, and I want us to move away from this very traditional definition of if you're a servant, therefore you're a teacher. That's not true. There are 10,000 servants that I know who serve with more fire and more zeal than I ever will, and they don't give talks. It's not about talks, okay? And it's not about what you do. It's about why you're doing whatever it is you're doing, okay? And the why is the reason why your wisdom grows when you are serving him. Because your motivation to serve, which is your devotion to him, is what brings you closer to him, which is what like motivates or propels your pursuit of him and wisdom, and which is what makes him want to desire to give it to you, right? Like when we talked about Solomon last week, God was pleased with Solomon's request for wisdom because wisdom, like it yokes you to him, right? Because it only comes from him. So it means that you are attached to him and you're yoked to him. And so Solomon's desire for wisdom is also inherently a desire for God, right? So you cannot separate the idea of wisdom and service. They go hand in hand. And wisdom grows when you're in the service of God. Okay, makes sense? Anybody want to fight that or challenge that? I'm okay if you do. No? Okay. All right. So that was the first concept in Sirach 2. The first concept is that wisdom grows in the service of God. Okay. The second one, and I just want to say, okay, background, I appreciate this about Sirach. Okay. I feel like we're getting a little bit of his personality coming through, and I appreciate this part of his personality. Okay. So the second theme is that the attainment of wisdom is impossible without patience and tribulation. Okay. For the rest of the book, essentially, Sirach is just telling it how it is. Okay. And Sirach speaks in Proverbs the same way, the traditional Proverbs book does, right? But the traditional Proverbs book talks a lot about like blessings, and if you keep to the rules, God will bless you and give you in abundance and all the wonderful things. Okay. What I like about Sirach is that it's almost like he's arming you with reality. Okay. Like, yes, you will be blessed and all that stuff will happen. But before you can be blessed, your life may suck. Tough. Okay. Like, he doesn't sugarcoat the reality of what it will mean to pursue wisdom. Okay. The same way we shouldn't, or in my opinion, shouldn't sugarcoat the reality of what it means to be a Christian. Is it hard? Yes. Will you go through trials and tribulations? Yes. Will it all be lollipops and butterflies and whatever? No, it won't be. It's going to be hard. There will be suffering. Like, and we have to be okay with partaking in the fellowship of his suffering if we want to be united with him. But we don't talk about that, right? We talk about the butterflies and the lollipops. But that's not enough. Because if we don't talk about the difficult parts that are coming, then we don't arm each other with like the appropriate expectations to withstand the tribulation that's coming. So this is what I appreciate about Sirach, is that he just tells it like it is. He just gives it to you straight. Like, yeah, things are going to suck, but here's what you have to do. So can I get someone to read this section? It's verses 2 to 6 here. I'll just leave it up on the screen so that nobody's like flipping through to try and find it. Don't all jump at once though, because I know everybody's excited to read it out loud.
Okay, I can.
Okay, go ahead, Victor.
Thank you.
Set your heart right and be steadfast, and do not be impetuous in time of calamity. Cling to him and do not depart, so that your last days may be prosperous. Accept whatever befalls you, and in times of humiliation be patient, for gold is tested in the fire, and those found acceptable in the furnace of humiliation. Trust in him and he will help you. Make your ways straight and hope in him.
Okay. So I mean, this passage is no butterflies and lollipops here. Okay, like he tells you up front. Okay, things are gonna suck. Okay, so it says, accept whatever befalls you, and in times of humiliation, be patient. Okay, it doesn't say if you are humiliated. He talks about it like when you are humiliated. Okay, because as a Christian, as somebody who's going to pursue wisdom, as somebody who's going to pursue the intimate knowledge of Christ, you will be humiliated. And like, I like his choice of words. Okay, it's not that you will be uncomfortable. Okay, you will be humiliated. You will have times of calamity. Okay, not stress, calamity. It will be disastrous. Okay, but gold is tested in fire, and God finds you acceptable when you are in the depths of that humiliation, or in the furnace of that humiliation. So it's not that it won't happen, but it's your perspective about it when it does happen. Do you view it as like, my life is over, this is not fair? Or do you view it as a stepping stone to the next level of your relationship with him? He's not going to sugarcoat this. This is coming. This is going to happen. And if you are truly committed to knowing him and partaking in the fellowship with him, then you have to be prepared for the fact that this will happen. Like, think about all of the stories of everybody that we ever talk about, okay? There is always some sort of calamity or disaster or humiliation or whatever. Think about Samson, okay, in the Hall of Faith. He had the ultimate humiliation at the end of his life when they had gouged out his eyes or whatever and they were treating him like an animal. Ultimate humiliation, okay? Think about David. David is a man who saw like his heart is with the Lord, okay? A man after God's own heart. And when he fell, ultimate humiliation. Everybody knew everything that he ever did. Nothing was left in secret. Even though he was a king, he was humbled and brought down in the ultimate humiliation, okay? You're being righteous and you're being like yoked to him does not mean that you will not face this. You will face it, whatever you are, yoked or not yoked, okay? But the question is this something that you willingly accept in pursuit of him or not? Is this something that you view as necessary to your relationship, or is this something that makes you victimize yourself? That's the question. And we have to talk about this, because if you're going to victimize yourself, you're not going to come out stronger on the other side. You're not going to come out with him on the other side, right? But the whole purpose of these tribulations is to bring you closer to him. And even adjusting your perspective on tribulations is one step closer to the attainment of wisdom, right? There is wisdom in knowing that these tribulations serve a greater purpose. And that's what I appreciate about Sirach. He wants to give you the full story, right? And the only other time I see that is James. James also just like, he just gives it to you straight. Like, it's black and white. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, tough. And that's kind of the way I mean, it's maybe like a personality flaw for me, but that's the way I discuss things. That's the way I raise my children. Like, my husband was, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, my daughter asked me, "Oh, mama, what's a skeleton?" And I told her, "Oh, a skeleton is what's left behind when you die, after you decompose." And my husband was just like, whoa, like, maybe we shouldn't just like, but like, I am more of a fan of being very like upfront about things and black and white, because I like to be prepared. Okay, whatever the outcome is, doesn't matter. I like to be braced for it, and Millie is the same way. So I appreciate this about Sirach. I resonate with this about Sirach, because he would much rather give it to you straight and you either accept it or you don't accept it, but at least he's given you the honest truth, right? At least he's given you a little bit of a reality check. So, he talks a lot about all the bad things that are going to happen to you, right? Calamity and humiliation and like, in the furnace of humiliation and whatever. But what he also does is he arms you with what you need to get through that tribulation, right? So he's not just all disasters, right? He's telling you, yeah, this is coming, okay? But there is a way to navigate through this. There is a way to navigate your way through the calamity that is inevitable if you so choose to continue to pursue wisdom and therefore continue to pursue God, right? And ingrained in his speech about the disasters, okay, are the tools that you need to arm yourself to navigate this, right? So the first one is do not be impetuous, okay? So what does it mean to be impetuous? It's very flowery language, but essentially impetuous is acting quickly without thought or care, okay? So when you're in a situation and you don't like assess what's the best thing for you to do at this point, you just act. You just react, okay? This is me. The rest of these 1 to 5, okay, just so you know, this is all me. This is part of the reason why I was interested in learning a little bit about the wisdom of Sirach, okay? And so what he's saying is, don't just react to a situation. Like, don't think that you are like qualified enough to respond to a situation. And no matter what it is, generally speaking, an impulsive response is usually the wrong response, right? So don't be impetuous. Don't jump on whatever your emotions are prompting you to do. In fact, what you should be doing, and like just a manifestation of being impetuous, your emotions are prompting you to do. In fact, what you should be doing, and like just a manifestation of being impetuous is like, you know, when somebody's in a confrontation and they lash out. For me, my manifestation of being impetuous is I overplan. Okay. So we got a call last week that there's a positive in my kids' school. My kids are home for 2 weeks. I have a 4-year-old today. She's 4, and a 2.5-year-old. And then I just had a baby like two months ago. Okay. So I now have a newborn who's like obviously quite needy. And then the other two. So before today, my daughter was 3. So being home with 3 under 3 was a little bit like daunting. Okay. And so what do? Impetuously, I overplan. Okay. So if you look in my agenda right now, I have every meal, every snack planned out. I have activities for each day. I have like a schedule. You think Toby keeps to a schedule? Of course not. He doesn't keep to anything. Okay. But my instinct is to just overplan. Okay. Or if there's like a situation that's very stressful, my instinct is to just take over. Okay. Like at work, when there's some disaster, there's some whatever, I just take over. I go into planning mode and I just take over. Writing in my agenda their meals and whatever may not necessarily be a bad thing. Okay. But is that the right initial response is the question. Okay. So maybe in this situation, it doesn't manifest as like, you know, something super negative or whatever, but is this wisdom? Like, is this the ideal way to respond to something? I would argue that it isn't, because in the same breath that he talks about do not be impetuous, okay, his next instruction or his next piece of advice is to cling to him, right? And this one is easy for you to figure out if you do this or not, okay? So in times of struggle or in times of stress, is your first reaction to cling to him? Or are you like me? Is your first reaction to fix it yourself, to overplan, to come up with, you know, some strategy about the way you're going to navigate this? Or is it to victimize yourself and say, oh, why is this happening to me? Blah, blah, blah. Who's your first call in times of stress? Who do you turn to for help? Okay, so I'll give you an example. On Wednesday or Thursday or something, Toby fell down the stairs, my son, my 2.5-year-old, okay? And it was bad, guys. Like, wow, like I think my heart stopped. Like I heard him tumble and the tumbling didn't stop. Like it was just tumble after tumble. Like how high up on the stairs was he? I don't know. Okay. Because it just kept happening. And I like, my heart stopped. Okay. This is like literally our biggest fear. Okay. We literally have a dog gate in front of the stairs, but Toby is now big enough that he can move it. Okay. Absolutely my peak of stress this week. Okay. And I'm running to get Toby to figure out what's going on. As I'm running, I am dialing my husband as I'm running. Okay. My husband is my first call. 100%. Okay. Is it bad for Rami to be my first call? No. Is it ideal for my first thought to be call Rami? I don't think so. The ideal is for my first thought to be praying as I'm running that he's fine. That's the ideal. So in that moment later, I can honestly say that, do I cling to him in times of struggle? I don't know. I don't know. Because I rely heavily on my husband. I do. Okay. Is he like my first thought when something goes wrong? Is he like my gut instinct when something goes wrong? I want to say yes. But Wednesday when Toby fell, he wasn't. Is that ideal? Is that wisdom? No, it's not. Okay. Conversely, okay, a little bit of window into my own personal drama. Okay. There was a moment I will never ever forget about my mother-in-law. Like it's like burned into my mind. Okay. Like, so bear with me about some of the drama of this. Okay. But before, I have 3 kids. I have Millie, Toby, and Maddie. Before Millie, we had a son who passed away when he was 5 days. And they didn't know that he was unwell or whatever until he was born, etc. So on the day he was born, They ran some tests, and then we were waiting for the results, and the results would tell us essentially if they call it compatible with life, if what he had is compatible with life, or if it isn't, aka if he would die. And so, you know, they came into the room with me and my husband after the C-section, and they told us like, this is what it is or whatever, like, you know, he's not going to survive, etc. Okay. And so my husband and I had our time together where we could just like, you know, like, I don't want to say process, because it's not, you didn't really process it in that moment, but react. And then the next step was to tell the hundreds of people that were waiting in the waiting room, because they were excited about the birth of our first kid, right? And in the waiting room was my parents and his parents and my siblings and his parents and his siblings and my best friend and whatever. There was like literally maybe 20 or 25 people in the waiting room before COVID, when you could do that kind of stuff, right? And so we brought them all into the hospital room. I had a private room. And, you know, we were trying to explain that he's not going to survive, that he's going to die. And like, as soon as we said it, my mother-in-law, like, I have never admired her more than in that moment. She cut everybody off. She stopped the discussion and she said, everybody, we're going to pray right now. And she closed her eyes. She grabbed everybody's hand. She made everybody grab each other's hands. And she just started praying out loud. Like, she couldn't even wait for us to finish the sentence before she needed to cling to him. Like we had barely got out the words that he was not going to survive. And she just like, bam, like, oh my God, we have to pray right now. And just like, it was her first, and it was such an honest first reaction. Like, it was such an honest, like, gut instinct that she just in that moment heard the worst news she's ever heard, and she just needs to pray. And everybody has to pray. Like, that is clinging to him. That is wisdom. That is what you need to be. You get the bad news, you get whatever your worst fear is, whatever calamity, okay, is going to befall you, because it's inevitable, that your first instinct is to cling to him. And your first instinct is to go to him. And as you're running to or from whatever the calamity is, you are talking to him, and you are asking him, and you are praying to him, and you are begging him, whatever it is. But your first instinct is to cling to him. I need to be that, okay? Because my first instinct is to fix it, okay? I heard Toby fall. I called my husband, and in my mind, I'm going through a differential in my head. What's the concussion protocol? What symptoms am I looking for? Blah, blah, blah. What's the nearest hospital? Blah, and I'm going through like a medical differential, okay? Sure, you know, that has its uses, okay? But is that going to preserve the life of my son? No, it's not. What's going to preserve the life of my son is to cling to him. And if he decides, God forbid, not to preserve the life of my son, even more do I need to cling to him, okay? Like, I rely too heavily on myself and my academic knowledge and my planning and my, like, that is not wisdom. Wisdom is what my mother-in-law did. The worst possible thing is happening, I have to pray right now. Like, the worst possible news I'm getting, I have to pray. Like, I can't even process what you're saying until I pray. That is clinging to him. That is wisdom. That is what I need to be, especially with Toby, a kid like Toby who literally keeps me up at night. That's what I need, is to be able to cling to him, to make him my first reaction. Okay. So the next one is to accept what befalls you, okay? So what that means is, when something like this happens, okay, what is your response? And it doesn't have to be like, you know, your first reaction or whatever, but in the depths of your heart, okay, like when you are by yourself and you are processing whatever's happening, are you upset? Like, do you feel that this is unfair, that this is not what you deserve? Like, why could he let this happen to you? Like, do you view these trials and these tribulations as not just, okay? Or like, now you're a victim because you didn't deserve for this to happen to you, and it is. Or do you view this as a step towards him, as a step towards your relationship? Like, I remember when we used to do a lot of the relationship stuff, okay, we used to talk about this concept of productive fighting, okay? Like when my husband and I were dating and whatever. And the concept of productive fighting is that you come out of the fight stronger in your relationship. Okay, you come out having gained additional insights about each other, and now you know this which you didn't know before, and now you're going to do this which you weren't doing before, and this is going to improve your relationship because your fight is productive. Okay, is your tribulation productive? Do you view it as something that can be productive, or are you drama central? I told you guys last week, was it last week? I can't remember which talk I talked about it, about how when my son died, there was somebody like close to us who took it harder than like me, like Sam's parents, okay? Like they took it, like they just couldn't reconcile that God could allow this. And they couldn't reconcile that God would be okay with this, okay? Like obviously, like I pray that never happens to anybody, that nobody ever loses a child, okay? But when something like that or otherwise happens, okay, like, do you feel like he shouldn't have let this happen? Like it's not fair? Like I didn't deserve this, so how could he do that to me? Or do you view this as this is what needed to happen? Are you able to reconcile it? I can tell you, like I said, with my son dying, it, like I mentioned this last week, it was harder on the people around us, okay? Because on the inside, okay, there are things that we saw that made his mercy tangible. Like I have never in my life felt like I could like touch and feel the concept of mercy until those 5 days with my son, okay? Other people didn't get to see that, okay? They didn't get to see that. And so it was harder for them to reconcile that. It was harder for them to accept that this is what needed to happen, right? Like, you know, people always ask us, oh, are you gonna sue the doctors and blah, 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 like all that stuff. And when we got to a good place, our response was, there is nothing that anybody could have done. Like, sure, the doctors missed whatever they missed, or who cares? They missed it because he wanted it to be missed, because this is what needed to happen. Like, there is no reason for me to be upset with anybody else because this is what he said needed to happen. And so no matter how thorough or how exhaustive anybody was, what if this and that, he wanted it this way. He wanted us to take him to term. He wanted us to walk through that and to cling to him. So that's it. Right? When I got the call, so that's Sam, okay? Arguably one of the most difficult things I've ever been to. A flashback to last Saturday, okay, when we get the call that my kids are home for 2 weeks, okay? Oh my gosh, and I'm like freaking out, like what am I gonna do with these 3 kids at home? Like it says something about my reactions that I am drawing a parallel between Habibi when Sam died and my kids being home for 3 weeks. Like it tells you something about me, okay? But like there's one situation where I was able to reconcile that, and then a situation which arguably shouldn't even be analogous, where I'm just like, oh my good, are you kidding me? Like, why? How am I gonna do this with Maddie home and blah blah? She's nursing every 3 hours. Oh, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna like control Toby while I'm nursing her? Like I'm like immobile. And so the question is, in your pursuit of wisdom, okay, do you accept what is coming? Or are you me and kicking up this big drama fest about the things that are happening that are less than ideal? Be patient. Oh, this is the worst one for me. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to here. Okay, so it was do not be impetuous, and then cling to him, and then accept whatever befalls you. Okay, and then in times of humiliation, be patient. Okay. This one is by far the hardest one for me, by far, okay? For me, I am all about timelines, okay? It's easy to be patient when I know what the timeline is, okay? and when there's an end in sight. Okay, so like my kids being home, I keep talking about my kids being home. It's actually not that bad. I'm just being dramatic. Okay, but I know they're going back to school June 3rd. Okay, end in sight. I can be patient. Okay, I'm not being patient. There's an end in sight. Like that's not patience. Okay, it's easy to be patient when you know what's coming, or when you have a timeline, or when it fits your timeline, or when it fits your plan. Okay, the hardest part of waiting and being patient is when that's all up in the air. And for me, that is an absolute nightmare. That is something that is easily the hardest thing for me to accomplish. Okay, small example. Okay, my parents got the AstraZeneca, not to like bring some controversy into this discussion, but my parents got the AstraZeneca, okay? And now they are offering second dose AstraZeneca, okay? And my husband's telling me, so what should we tell them to do? Should we tell them to take the second dose of AstraZeneca, or should we tell them to wait for Pfizer? Okay, and we're looking at the data and blah, blah, blah. Without even mind looking at the data, I'm like, take the second dose. Like, it's here, it's now, it's right in front of you. Like, you don't know what's happening. If the mixed like vaccine studies are going to come out, you don't know when they're going to come out, blah, blah, blah. Take the AstraZeneca. That's what's in front of you. And my husband on the other side is like, well, I don't know. Like, maybe we should wait, like, see what happens. Like, because my husband, patience to him comes naturally. He's so good at it. For me, I can't. This concept of waiting for something that's uncertain is so difficult. It's so difficult, right? Like my heart goes out to people that are like waiting for something that is not like defined, that is uncertain, like the people that are just indefinitely trying to have kids and there's no assurance that they will or they won't, right? Or similarly, the people that are, you know, looking for the right person, okay? And there's no assurance that they will or they won't. There's no end in sight. There's no guarantee that at some point this is going to come to a head. Will you have kids? Don't know. Will you get married? Don't know. Will you find the person? Don't know. Right? Like, it's easy to wait for something that you know is coming. But waiting for something that's uncertain, for me, like, I can't, like, it is easily the hardest thing. I am all about timelines and like what's in front of me. Okay. However, I can see the wisdom in patience. I can see it, right? I can see the wisdom in my husband's perspective. I can see it because my husband like doesn't hang his hopes or his hat on the outcome. Okay. The entire process is all about God because he doesn't know what the endpoint is going to be. So he's not gunning for a specific endpoint. He's gunning for whatever you say. And if what you say is that the journey matters more than the end point, okay. To me, that is like the hardest thing because I'm all about like black and white, resolutions, outcomes, like endpoints, right? Like my high school and university kids that I used to serve way back in the day, they used to always make fun of me. My tagline is, what is the outcome? Okay, they ask me, should I do this? And my question to them is, what is the outcome? There has to be an identifiable outcome that will justify what you're doing. What's the outcome? Okay. But sometimes you don't know what the outcome is. Sometimes he doesn't give you an outcome because he asks for you to be patient. And in that patience, okay, you rely fully on him. In that patience, okay, you lean on him. You cling to him. You pursue him. So there is wisdom in the ability to be patient. I don't have it yet. I'll let you know if it ever comes. It's been 33 years and I'm still waiting, okay? But for me, this is easily the hardest part. But do I see the wisdom in what it means to be patient? Absolutely. Because if you're not hanging your hope on the outcomes, then your trust and your hope is in him. It's not in yourself. It's not in what you can do. It's not in your efforts. It's not in what other people will do for your situation. It's in him. You trust that either he will change your heart or he'll change your situation, right? Like when we had all this drama about having kids or whatever, okay? Like my prayers became either give me kids or make me not want any, right? Like I can't continue like this. So you have to change something about this, right? Like you have to be able to trust and to hope that it's not the outcome that you're relying on, that it's him. Okay. So like, let's say your outcome is finding the right person for you. Okay. And you haven't yet. Okay. You trust and hope that either you will, or that he will change your heart that you don't want to anymore. And he will make you fulfilled without it. Okay. Same with kids. You trust that either he will give you kids or he will make you not want them anymore. And that he will make you fulfilled without them. Right? Because your hope is in him. Your hope is not in an outcome. Your hope is not in having kids or finding the person. Your hope is in him making you fulfilled with whatever his will is. That's the wisdom, right? The step below wisdom is saying, this is what I want. And I'm going to hope that this is what he gives me. Okay? That's not wisdom. Wisdom is, this is what I want. I don't know if he's going to give it to me, but I trust and hope that whatever situation he decides is right, that he'll make me okay with it. That's the difference between trusting and hoping in him versus trusting and hoping in a specific outcome or in an effort or in, what somebody else will bring. That makes sense? Any issues with that? I have lots of issues with it. I haven't been able to do this ever, but any conceptual issues? Okay, so the last section of Sirach 2, I can see that I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit, okay? Is where he talks about, actually, let's just get into it. Can I get someone to read this, 7 to 9? I feel like I've spoken a little bit too much.
I'll read. You who fear the Lord, wait for his mercy. Do not stray, or else you may fall. You who fear the Lord, trust in him, and your reward will not be lost. You who fear the Lord, hope for good things, for lasting joy and mercy.
So here he goes back to what we talked about in Sirach 1, which is the fear of the Lord, and how the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, okay? Because if the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, okay, the next step in your pursuit of wisdom is to have patience and confidence in God, right? And so here, what he's talking about is like, the analogy is a farmer and a fisherman, okay? So fear of the Lord is like necessary, okay? Same thing with a farmer and a fisherman. Hard work is necessary, okay? But ultimately, the fruit of the labor, which is wisdom, is a gift from God, okay? So a fisherman can do everything possible. He can get up early and, I don't know anything about fishing, have the right bait, nets, not sure, whatever. Do everything wrong, right, okay? Like work as hard as he can and do everything. Ultimately, his yield is a gift, right? Like he could do everything right and still catch 0 fish, okay? He could do everything wrong and still get lucky and have a boatload of fish, okay? Because ultimately, the fruit of his labor is a gift from God, okay? So similarly, is she awake? Okay. Can you hold her up for like 7 minutes? Okay. Sorry, Maddie's awake. So ultimately, okay, similar to wisdom, your fear of the Lord is the hard work, okay? But the wisdom that you get is ultimately a gift from God, right? Just because you do everything right doesn't mean that you will get wisdom, right? Solomon had wisdom, okay? But not everybody did. David didn't have any wisdom, okay? David was like a man after God's own heart. Nobody calls him wise, okay? So it's the waiting and the patient trusting in God that make the difference, okay? Like you can do everything right, okay? But you have to be able to be patient and to wait on God in your pursuit of wisdom. If you don't have that, the same way like a farmer and a fisherman don't have that, like it's like there is no fruit of your labor. Do you know what I mean? Okay, can I get someone else to read 10 and 11?
I can do it. Consider the generations of old and see, has anyone trusted in the Lord and been disappointed? Or has anyone preserved in the fear of the Lord and been forsaken? Or has anyone called upon him and been neglected? For the Lord is compassionate and merciful. He forgives sins and saves in time of distress.
So here he's reminding you to remember what God has done for you in the past, right? Like you are walking like through a relationship with God. And there are things that he's already done for you that are beyond words. So don't forget about that, right? Like, remember the last time that you were in X, Y, and Z situation and he saved you, right? Like, for me, it's remember the last time that Toby fell. Like, Toby's a lot. Like, remember the last time that God saved Toby from X, okay? Don't forget what he's already done for you. And I always talk about, you know, the quiet time journals. I have a stack of quiet time journals in my like prayer corner because sometimes I need to remember. Sometimes I need to flip through and go through times where I literally felt like this was the hardest time of my life, where I was in the depths of the valleys and he pulled me right out of it. Like, I have, like, always when things get like stressful, I have like a top 5, okay? And like, it's a prayer about the top 5 things that he's done for me that were impossible, that were like in the hardest times of my life, right? Like, and I constantly go through my top 5, especially when I'm in a situation where it seems like there is no resolution or there's no way out of this, because it reminds me that there were a top 5 before that there was no way out of, and he found you a way out. So don't forget, okay? And then when you remind yourself, then you fall back on the characteristics of God that you know to be true. You know he's compassionate. You know he's merciful. You know he forgives, and you know that he saves. You know this, okay? And you know this because he's already done X, Y, and Z. So don't forget the things that he has already done for you, because that will help you walk through the things that he's about to do for you, okay? Last one. Can I get someone to read it? Oh no, not the last one, second last, sorry.
I can read.
Thank you.
Woe to timid hearts and to slack hands, and to the sinner who walks a double path. Woe to the faint-hearted who have no trust, therefore they will have no shelter. Woe to you who have lost your nerve. What will you do when the Lord's reckoning comes?
So this,
Reminiscent.
oh sorry, just that part. Thank you, Jessica. So this is all like here. So you who fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, do not stray, or else you may fall. Like, woe to the sinner who walks a double path, right? And then you go back. Oops. You who fear the Lord, trust him, and your reward will not be lost. Okay. And then it's like he's telling you this is what happens when you don't do that. So like verse 12 corresponds to verse 7, and 13 corresponds to 8, and 14 corresponds to 9. It's like, this is what you should be doing when you fear the Lord. When you don't fear the Lord, this is what happens. Okay. Woe to you who do the opposite of what those who fear the Lord do. It's like what to do and what not to do. Okay. And then the last one here, okay, is again consolidating the concept of what you do when you fear the Lord, when you have learned to fear the Lord appropriately. Okay. And so essentially Sirach 1 and 2 are the foundation of the rest of the book, because they talk about the source and nature of wisdom and the service of God and his faith and fear. So they lay the foundation for the rest of the book. So very quickly, because I can hear my child screaming outside, okay? I just wanted to gauge some feedback, because this is a series for me that is very not intuitive. Like, I don't like the philosophical, like, I don't usually do stuff like that. Like, this is my own reading on the side that I'm doing like on my own, and I don't typically pull that kind of stuff into talks like this because I'm uncomfortable with philosophy and that kind of thing. Again, I'm all about like objectives and outcomes and whatever. So the question that I have for you guys, and I might have to ask Marina to kind of gauge the response for this because I have to go and feed my child, is what do you guys want to hear next? Okay, so each book of Sirach has a theme. Okay, so like options B to E, I essentially listed a few of the books and what the theme of each of the books are. So do you want to hear a new series on surrender? Okay. Or do you want to do one more talk about one more book in Sirach? And these are kind of the themes that I pulled out that might be relevant. So I'm going to leave this to you. I don't know if maybe Marina wants to like, I don't know, do a poll or one of those Facebooky things, Instagrammy things. Like, I have no idea. And actually, maybe it's probably better for me to head out while you guys chat about this, because like, it doesn't matter to me if we do another book in Sirach or if we do a brand new series, or if you have ideas for new series, that's good too. But here are kind of some of the options. And then you guys tell me what you want to hear next. Because again, like I said, the philosophy thing is not really like, we don't really do that often. So Marina, I'm going to hand the floor over to you if that works.
Okay, sure, Sarah, no problem.
And then I'm going to go and take my screaming child from my husband. All right?
Okay,
Thank
sounds
you,
good.
guys.
I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, you know what? I'll leave this up. I'll just turn off my camera. So that you guys
That's okay. I took a screenshot.
okay. But in case anybody else wants to talk about it. So I'll just turn off my video and then you guys do you and then just end the meeting whenever. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
What do you guys think? We can also do a poll on Instagram, but do we want to continue with Sirach or do we want to just start another series?
I will
When
vote
you say
Sirach.
You want
Yeah.
more Sirach?
Yes.
Okay.
continue Sirach, you mean pick one of options A through E, or you mean do A?
We can continue. Like we can continue Sirach 6, friendship, false and true. We can we can pick any of these, or continue in that order.
I think Sarah said, from my understanding, it's going to be one more of Sirach if we do continue, or we start a new one. Like
So
a
then
new.
would we just kind of like suggest, if we wanted to do new topics, we would just kind of like come up with suggestions type of thing? Because
Yeah.
these ones are all Sirach.
Yeah, and I'm sure Sarah wouldn't mind if we go like if we have more than one of Sirach.
Are you thinking of doing like a social media poll, or? When I saw this list, I
Talk
thought
about it here,
C.
and then maybe if we have two choices, we can put it on social media.
Okay, when I
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah, Jessica.
I thought C was cool. Deceptiveness of appearance, like things are not as they seem necessarily.
Yeah, I like that too.
I thought E was cool too. False friends and caution and taking advice.
Okay. Yeah. So C and that will be G. I think Sarah put E twice, but it will be G.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What about you, Victor?
I mean, I just prefer to continue in Sirach, but like I don't have strong preference on which topic.
Okay. Okay, and Philo?
Yeah, we'll take the Instagram poll and then we'll see the results.
Okay, so I'm hearing a consensus that we continue with Sirach, but we can just vote on which topic next. Okay. Sounds like a plan. I'll text Sarah, let her know, and I'll get our social media team to prepare a poll. Sounds good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you guys could join us today, and please join us next week as I guess we'll continue Sirach, and we'll see what topic gets voted on next.